Okay, imagine this scenario. Two huge figures, they seem like allies, right? And now, bam, they're in this massive public fight.
Yeah, really explosive.
And it's not just, personalities clashing. It's about a law, a big one, that could seriously change the country's finances.
It really is more than just like a juicy headline, isn't it? It's almost a live experiment showing how these really powerful private individuals, with all that money and media clout, are starting to directly challenge, maybe even shape the traditional political game. It really makes you think, who's actually calling the shots in D.C. these days?
Exactly. And that's the kind of puzzle we're trying to piece together today on the Deep Dive. Welcome, everyone.
Glad to be here.
We basically take a whole pile of sources, do the research, boil it all down, and try to give you the key info you need to get up to speed fast. So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack the main arguments, the issues underneath, and figure out what this very public clash actually means for you. And we're diving straight in because, wow, the sources show a pretty dramatic return to the political stage.
Yeah, sudden is the word.
Elon Musk. He had sort of suggested he was taking a step back from politics.
He did, yeah, back in May.
But then Monday, July 1st, 2025, he jumps back in big time, issues this really stark warning about President Trump's, what Trump calls the big, beautiful bill.
Which was up for debate in the Senate then.
Exactly.
At speed, it's pretty striking, isn't it? Especially when you remember him saying just weeks before he was done with the big political spending.
Right.
Makes you ask what specifically in this bill made him jump back in so hard so fast.
Well, he didn't just vaguely complain. He went on X, his platform, and laid down a direct challenge, unequivocal. He said, and this is a direct quote, "Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame."
Wow, strong words.
And he didn't stop there. He added a really personal threat. "And they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth."
That's intense, going after their seats directly.
Extremely. And then, just a few hours later, he doubles down.
Right, there was more.
He puts out there that if this insane spending bill passes, quote unquote, then the very next day, the America Party will be formed.
A whole new party.
Yeah. He says the country needs something different from what he calls the Democrat-Republican uniparty. Or, and this is quite a phrase.
Oh, I remember this one.
The Porky Pig Party.
Oh.
Because in his view, this bill is just going to pile on debt. A record, he claims, $5 trillion.
$5 trillion. That's the number he's putting out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that kind of direct attack, especially the primary threat, it wasn't going to sit unanswered for long.
No, you wouldn't expect Trump to let that slide.
Trump's reply came pretty fast. Late night on Truth Social. And he didn't just defend the bill. He fired back directly at Musk's businesses.
Yeah. Hitting him where it hurts, potentially. Let's focus on that threat for a second.
Okay.
Trump said he'd get the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, they call it?
Right, DOGE.
To take a good, hard look at Musk's subsidies. Trump's claim that Musk gets more subsidy than any human being in history by far.
Strong claim.
And he went on to say that without those subsidies, Musk would probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa.
Wow.
And that this would affect, rocket launches, satellites, or electric car production. Trump framed it as saving the country money.
Bringing up South Africa, too, that's quite personal.
It is. And it raises a question, is DOGE actually set up to, dismantle SpaceX or Tesla? Or is this more of a political shot across the bow trying to pressure him?
That's a really good point, because it moves it from just policy disagreement to more high-stakes personal threats.
Oh,
right?
exactly.
But let's get back to the actual bill, the thing that sparked all this devastate spending bill. Musk calls it debt slavery. What are the financial facts as we know them?
Okay, so looking at the official scorekeeper, the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO.
Right.
Their estimates, they suggest the Senate version of the bill would add almost $3.3 trillion to the deficit over 10 years.
3.3 trillion, okay. And the House version?
That one was lower. The CBO estimated it would add about 2.4 trillion. So the Senate one is significantly bigger in terms of projected debt.
What makes it bigger?
The main things seem to be deeper tax cuts in the Senate package, fewer spending cuts compared to the House, and also some different ways they plan to raise revenue.
Okay, so $3.3 trillion according to the CBO. That sounds like a lot of debt, not deficit reduction.
It does.
But the White House is saying something totally different. They're claiming it slashes deficits and unleashes economic growth. How do they square that circle?
Well, that's a key point our sources highlight. It seems the Trump administration and some Senate Republicans involved, they're not counting the cost of making the 2017 Trump tax cuts permanent in their math.
Ah, okay. So they're leaving out a potentially huge cost factor.
Exactly. If you don't include the cost of extending those tax cuts, the deficit picture looks very, very different. It explains the wildly different projections we're seeing.
Got it. So beyond just the big deficit number, what are Musk's specific complaints about the content of the bill?
Well, he argues it gives handouts to industries of the past, as he puts it, while severely damaging industries of the future.
Industries of the future. Sounds like tech, maybe green energy.
That's the implication, yeah. It suggests a real clash over where the government should be putting its resources, old economy versus new economy, maybe.
And it's probably worth mentioning here, Musk has actually publicly denied that he's opposing the bill just because it might cut subsidies or credits for electric vehicles and solar power.
Right, even though those are obviously linked to his companies.
He frames it as a bigger principle about economic direction, not just his own bottom line.
Meanwhile, Trump's been pretty upfront about his views on EVs and subsidies, too.
Yeah.
In that same Truth Social post, he defended his opposition to EV mandates. He said Musk knew, long before endorsing him, that he was strongly against the EV mandate.
Okay.
Trump called the mandate ridiculous, said, electric cars are okay, but not everyone should be forced to own one. So it shows a clear difference on energy policy direction, not just spending levels.
It really does. But, to really get a handle on why this blew up so spectacularly now, we kind of need to look at Musk's own political journey, right? It's been complicated.
Definitely not his first time getting involved.
No. I mean, he spent a lot of money, over $275 million just in the 2024 election to back Trump and other Republicans.
That's a huge amount, which makes this turnaround, this very public break, even more significant.
Exactly. Because, as you mentioned, just back in late May, he was saying he planned to cut back on political spending, said he'd done enough.
Right. So to go from done enough to threatening primaries and starting a new party over this one bill, it signals something shifted, fundamentally.
It suggests maybe it's not just about supporting candidates he likes anymore, but actively fighting policy he really hates.
Yeah, seems like it.
And the records, the FEC filings, they show his PAC, America PAC, last gave money back in March. It was for some Republicans in Florida, special elections, Randy Fine and Jimmy Patronis.
Okay, so recent activity, but then this statement about stepping back.
Right. And we should also remember, Musk has generally supported policies like closed borders, deportations, stopping illegal immigration, things that usually align pretty well with the Trump administration's platform.
There was definitely overlap there on several key issues.
So, given all that previous support, the money, the policy alignment, what was the trigger now? What made this bill the breaking point?
That really is the big question, isn't it? Maybe, despite the alignment on things like immigration, this bill just crossed a fiscal red line for him.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of the spending, perhaps.
Could be.
And it's interesting, that idea of a new political party, he didn't just pull that out of thin air for this fight.
Oh.
No, apparently that idea had popped up before in some expos he made several weeks ago. So maybe this dissatisfaction with the current two-party system has been building in him for a while.
Huh. So maybe this bill was just the final straw that made him voice it so forcefully.
It definitely looks like more than just a momentary flare-up.
Okay, so we've walked through the blow-by-blow, the arguments, the history. What are the main things you, our listener, should really take away from all this?
Well, to sort of boil down our deep dive here, I think this whole episode really spotlights this messy, volatile place where big tech, huge money, and national policy all crash into each other.
Yep.
You've got a tech billionaire dramatically jumping back into politics because of a spending bill he hates. You've got these clashing ideas about debt, about subsidies, about where the economy should go, and then these really dramatic threats flying back and forth between two incredibly powerful people.
It's definitely more than just a disagreement. It feels like a fight for who gets to set the agenda.
Absolutely, a battle for influence.
And understanding these kinds of public fights, it actually gives you really valuable insight, doesn't it, into how Business, policy, and political tactics are all mixing together in new ways. It shows how different economic ideas can just collide right out in the open, and that shapes headlines, sure, but it could also shape actual laws, actual policy. It forces politicians to react to these powerful voices who aren't necessarily part of the usual party structure.
Definitely. It changes the landscape.
So here's something to think about as you go on with your day, a final thought to chew on. In this time, when you have private citizens, individuals who control just immense wealth and have these huge media platforms they can use directly, how might these kinds of public showdowns change how we think about politics, about accountability, about how policy actually gets made?
It's a great question. Are we sort of moving into a new era where maybe powerful individuals, not just political parties, become these direct major players shaping the national conversation and maybe even the outcomes?
Something to consider.